Since the first Assassin's Creed game up until today, the hidden blade has been criticized as being an overrated or impractical weapon, that in reality you wouldn't ever really want to use a hidden blade over any other weapon that could perform the same function. It's a common criticism that I've heard online, and obviously there's people who agree and people who disagree, but I wanted to make this video in defense of the hidden blade because I think that people who tend to criticize the utility of it also tend to misunderstand what it is used for. So for those who don't know, who may be new to the Assassin's Creed franchise, the hidden blade is the signature weapon of the members of the Assassin's Brotherhood. It's designed as their primary means of enacting assassinations. Consisting of a blade that can be discreetly extended or retracted from a bracer or gauntlet, the hidden blade's portability and concealability complement the assassin's trademark affinity for stealth and free running. That's the kind of textbook wiki definition for the hidden blade, and the main criticism that you see online from different people is that the hidden blade is just a less optimal or less useful dagger, that in most combat scenarios you would want to use a dagger instead of a hidden blade. There's one user on Quora that kind of like explains the sentiment quite well. He says, "It would probably be better than nothing, but I wouldn't choose it over a normal dagger. The main advantage of the hidden blade is that it is hidden and can be quickly deployed. The ability to not have to worry about drawing your weapon might give you an edge on your first hit. After the first hit, however, the advantage disappears. A major disadvantage of the hidden blade is that it is not nearly as versatile as a traditional dagger. You can cut with it and you can only stab in a punching motion. With a normal dagger, you have many different ways to hold it that influence what you can do. You have different grips like the ice pick grip that'll give you powerful stabs and can help you in grappling. And you have a normal grip that won't only aid you in cutting but can also give range to you and put more distance between you and your opponent. Again, the whole point is that the dagger is much more useful than the hidden blade. But to this I say that you're misunderstanding what the hidden blade is for. There's a very purposeful, strategic reason why assassins would choose to use the hidden blade, and also a very symbolic reason. And when you look into the philosophy and the mythos of the Assassin's Creed in the fiction, you realize that symbology and tradition and philosophy is a very important part of their identity, and without that, the Assassin Brotherhood would kind of cease to exist in the way that we know it. So there's three main reasons why I think that the hidden blade is actually better than a dagger when you're looking at it from the perspective of an actual member of the Brotherhood. So in this episode of taking things too seriously that really shouldn't be that serious, we're going to look at the three main reasons that I think the hidden blade is actually the best weapon for stealth for the assassin. Now, for you to understand why I believe that the hidden blade is the best, you have to understand three tenets of the Assassin's Creed. The three tenets of the Assassin's Creed are kind of like the rules that they live by. They're the three unbreakable rules that most protagonists have broken, that kind of dictate how an assassin's supposed to behave, how they're supposed to compose themselves, and what strategy they need to adopt. And then we'll also compare that to the gameplay and the lore to see why the hidden blade fits into this kind of attitude they have towards their enemies. The first tenet of the Assassin's Creed is to hide in plain sight. Very self-explanatory. You're basically instructed to at all times try and divert attention from you, to hide in the crowd, to use line of sight and your environment to blend in and be inconspicuous as you're approaching your target or trying to gather intel. The second tenet is to stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent. That's basically saying not only do you not want to be violent towards people who you don't believe deserve it, which again has a lot of philosophical contention because the word innocent is too vague in my opinion, the assassins are basically instructed to minimize violence where they can, to minimize casualties and minimize conflict. And this is also backed by the third tenet, which is never compromise their brotherhood. So in these three tenets you can see that there's a very clear instruction as to how assassins should behave. They should be quick, they should be inconspicuous, and they should minimize violence. Now if you play as lore accurate as you can in these games, you can see how the games often encourage you to use stealth, kind of go undetected as much as you can, and kill as many people as possible. And a very popular playstyle among the stealth community is this playstyle called ghosting, which is essentially where you complete a mission without killing anyone except the main target, or if there's no main target, you complete a mission without killing anyone. This falls much more in line with the lore of most of the assassins that we know. Altair, Ezio, Bayek, all these people tend to choose to not kill if they have the choice, which is why I believe that the hidden blade is the perfect weapon for this. As the person said before in the post that I read out, and as a lot of people have pointed out, the hidden blade actually does have a strategic advantage in the first hit. You don't have to reach into a garb and draw out your dagger, which might draw attention to you, therefore violating the hide in plain sight tenet. And usually you would want to draw out a dagger if you want to create a lot of chaos. If you kill the first person, it's going to be very obvious who killed that person, and you're probably going to draw a lot of guards onto you. Again, you might end up hurting citizens, which violates the second tenet, and you'll definitely will not be hiding in plain sight, which means you could compromise the brotherhood. So here you kind of start to see my point from a strategic or practical perspective. A dagger is a weapon that is conducive to louder or more eventful assassinations. Even if you're trying to be inconspicuous, the second that you reach into any part of your body and try and draw out a metallic object, you're going to draw eyes on you. The second that you kill someone, because of the grips that we spoke spoke about before, you're going to draw more attention and it's going to be a more violent assassination. However, now I want you to pay attention to the animations in Assassin's Creed Unity, in Assassin's Creed 2, and in Assassin's Creed Origins. These are all very drastically different games with different assassination animations, but all the low profile kills are extremely inconspicuous, much more than they would be with the use of a dagger. What does this mean? This means that for the purpose of an assassin who's trying to minimize casualties, who's trying to hide in plain sight and get himself as far away from his target once he is dead as possible, having a knife that you can extract from your wrist basically without reaching anywhere, stabbing someone without using a lot of motion, a lot of force, or raising your arms in any way, and then being able to retract it quickly and keep on walking in a crowd is exactly the type of tool that an assassin would want to use. So from a practical perspective, you can immediately see how if you're only worried about the first hit because you're not trying to create any more hits, that one unique strike is what gives you leverage over the dagger, and it's why you would want to use a hidden blade for an assassin, because you don't want to stand there and create distance between the enemy, because you don't want to be fighting the enemy. So these 2 points, the fact that you can have one swift strike in a more strategic and practical way, and the fact that this allows you to move fast and away from your target, is exactly the reason why you would want to use a hidden blade. But then there's a third reason, which is the symbolic reason. Again, everyone already knows the story about sacrificing the finger or burning your finger with a ring in later years, but a hidden blade is much more a historic and symbolic element of the Assassin's Brotherhood that kind of brings responsibility and gravity to the commitment to the Brotherhood. If any assassin who wanted to be an assassin was just given a dagger, not only would it weigh less once you're admitted into the Brotherhood, but anyone could pretend to be part of that Brotherhood. Meaning that once you realize it's kind of like an exclusivity thing, a symbolic thing, something that will set you apart and make you feel like you're part of something bigger, you can understand the psychological implications of giving a special weapon, a highly crafted, intricate, very high quality weapon that only few people can access and only few people know how to make. It's important to understand that you're dealing with human beings here, not just practicality from a mechanical standpoint. The psychology of the person wielding the blade is almost as important as the blade itself. And if you don't have something that is monumental in the way that it provides symbolism, gravity, and purpose and status to the person that is wearing it, you're probably not going to have a devoted cult. And at the end of the day, the Assassin's Creed is just people in a cult who are extremely devoted to their philosophical mission. And this is kind of the overall point that I wanted to make in this video, is that from both a mechanical perspective, once you understand the actual objective of how assassins want to be behaving, and from a symbolic and metaphorical perspective, once you understand how important the psychology of an assassin is, you begin to understand why this whole criticism that the hidden blades aren't that practical, the whole criticism that daggers are much more practical for everything an assassin is trying to do, isn't really valid. And I'm glad that a lot of people have mentioned it in different posts. There's a huge channel called Scalagrim that made a video about it a few months ago, and I'm glad that people are starting to defend the hidden blade. But I also want to make it very clear that there are still people who believe the dagger is more functional. And I think those who believe that dagger is more functional misunderstand what assassins want to do, which is minimize casualties, get away from the crime scene as quickly as possible, be as inconspicuous as possible, and only strike once, only strike the target. I encourage you, if you haven't heard about this ghosting playstyle, to kind of get my point across, that you YouTube or Google search people playing in that style and how they avoid all the guards except their own target, because it kind of embodies how assassins would actually fight in the lore and how they would actually go about assassinating their targets in the lore. And it kind of reinforces my point of why the hidden blade is more practical once you have the correct way that assassins choose to go about their business. I hope that you've enjoyed this video where I go way too deep into the hidden blade and its importance and its significance and why I think that it's more practical than a dagger. And if you want to watch another video that I made discussing things that I shouldn't be discussing because they're not that deep, you can watch this video about how a fan base, in my opinion, managed to resurrect a hated character in the name of Connor Kenway, which you can watch right now.